Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and finally, we're getting back to those Pride videos. Now, one of my earliest videos on my channel was celebrating asexual Pride in books. And June has come once again, and I realized there's a topic I've noticed that never comes up in books. So I figured, why not make a video just pointing out all the books that have this very specific and rare thing. Now, forewarning, just like in the previous video, most of the books on this list I haven't actually read yet. I'm kind of also using this as sort of a TBR, things I need to get to into the near future. I have done research on all of these, so don't worry, these are majority well-received books. I am not, under my knowledge, recommending you guys a books that I see that people don't like, but if you guys know any opinions on these books, please leave that down in the comment section down below so other people can know stuff that I don't. So, with that all being said, let's dive on in. Actually, another fair warning, even though this title of the video is Lesbian Pride in Books, or Female Gay, I don't know what I'm titling this, but I don't think all these books specifically have lesbian characters. It's a female-female romance. Again, I have not read these. I cannot back up my word, but I really wanted to make this video. So beware, one of these characters in the relationship I'm about to mention might be bi. Again, this would just be entirely my fault. Go ahead and be mad at me. But female-female romances and books, they're rare and I want to talk about them. So starting off with the book that actually brought this to my attention, Alice Isn't Dead. This book is by one of the creators of Welcome to Night Vale. Joseph Fink co-writes Welcome to Night Vale with Jeffrey Cranor. This is, I believe, his first standalone novel. This also is sort of loosely based off of the podcast by the same name. I haven't listened to the full podcast, so I can't actually tell you what the comparison is. This book follows our main character, Keisha. Keisha, is that how you pronounce her name? Yeah, Keisha. Keisha Taylor was living a normal life with her wife Alice until one day Alice disappears. And Keisha went to her funeral, she's trying to move on with her life, and then one day she starts seeing Alice in the background of a lot of news videos, like footage across the country. Alice keeps popping up and so Keisha decides to do the only thing that's logical, become a truck driver, travel the country and search for her wife, who she's certain isn't dead. This book isn't so much about finding Alice, it's more about the adventures that Keisha has on the road, the weird world that is the American, just emptiness. If any of you have taken a road trip through America, you know that there's this sort of sense of wrong, you shouldn't be in certain areas. This book takes full advantage of it. It is urban horror fantasy, which is what Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor do the best, in my opinion. And it's just, there are sort of it's if you've read Night Vale, and I highly recommend Night Vale because there's a lot of gay and lesbian and bi and just representation in these books. But if you know what they do, it's not urban fantasy in the way that you might see, but it's just, there is definitely some sort of magic involved in this world that they have created, but it's really just set to be our world, but something's off. Now, I do think this book is not quite as good as the Welcome to Night Vale novels, but that's really just because I'm not so into road trip books and just traveling. I like a fixed location, thank you very much. So the fact that majority of this book takes place on the road, if you don't like that, I wouldn't quite recommend it as much as I would Night Vale, because again, there's a lot of good representation in Night Vale as well, but this is the book that brought to my attention the utter lack of female-female romances I have on my shelf. And that's why this video is a TBR for me. It's all the stuff I need to get to. The next book I have to talk about is Ash. This is a Cinderella retelling. After her mother died, Ash is left with her cruel stepmother, and the stepmother starts telling her these horrible stories. And it's all about how the fae will one day take you away and how you're a naughty girl and one day you'll die. You know, the medieval fairy tales, the stuff that doesn't have a happy ending. Well, Ash wants this life that's someone take her away, someone remove her from this home that she is forced to live in. And one day she ends up meeting the king's huntress, and she stops chasing fairies and instead she starts chasing the hunters. This is a female-female romance between Cinderella and one of the king's hunters, and it's just cute and adorable, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. I've heard 1 or 2 reviews saying, oh, it's a retelling, it's never as good as the original, but honestly, if you don't like retellings, why are you reading a retelling? Personally, like, if I find a good retelling, I enjoy it, but I tend to avoid it. But honestly, if this is a retelling that's gay, then I want to read it. The next book I have was popular really, like, not too long ago. Still, a lot of people are talking about this, and that is Girls of Paper and Fire. This does have some trigger warnings for sexual assault because this book follows a group of girls who are the forced concubines of this king. Every year or so, the king goes out, gathers a bunch of civilians, young women, and they essentially are forced to go be the king's concubine in the castle. They really only ever last a year. And so this story is supposed to follow these girls in this palace being forced to have sex with a king that they kind of hate. And along the way, our main character falls in love with one of the other concubines. And there's supposed to be this adorable romance between them. Again, there is trigger warning for assault. If you are not comfortable with forced sexual interaction, do not read this book. But everyone is saying it's one of the few books that deals with this topic and actually does it correctly. It's done tastefully isn't the right word, but everyone just says, like, if you're going to read a book that starts with this topic, do this one first. It's fantasy, there's some magical elements in it, but it also deals with some heavy topics. And there's gay women, which is like this whole video. The next book I have to talk about is Huntress. Now, this book, I actually haven't heard of it before making this list, and I'm kind of surprised because it seemed really interesting, and I've checked the reviews and everyone actually agrees it's good. Essentially, it follows this magical world and it's dying. The sun hasn't shone in a very long time, crops are failing, everything's kind of falling apart. And so these two girls are sent on a quest. One of them is a sage full of magic, and the other one is of the earth. She speaks otherworldly things. And these two girls are essentially sent to go talk to the fairy queen to see if this world can be saved. So there was definitely in the synopsis, it hints at these two getting really close together and having a romance. Check their reviews, definitely a female-female romance. And so it seems adorable, and I love it, and I can't wait to read this, because again, this is a TBR. I need to get to this. If you guys have read it, please tell me if it's as good as the reviews say, because I don't want to be hurt, but it just sounds so interesting, and I'm just so excited. This is actually written by the same person who wrote Ash, but this one has a lot more Chinese influence. This isn't a retelling, though according to the reviews, there is some strong hints of this is a fairy tale trope or something. So not a direct retelling, but there is hints of classical fairy tales. The next book I'm actually a little hesitant to recommend because the synopsis doesn't hint at any direct romance involved, but it is tagged as LGBT. There is reviews saying this has a female-female romance. So I'm going to talk about it. Just be warned, I haven't read this yet. Along with majority of these books, I have not read this yet. This is The Labyrinth Lost. This story follows this girl who is the most powerful witch in generations, and she hates magic. She hates magic so much. On the eve of her coming of age, she does this huge ritual to try to get rid of all her magic, and something goes wrong. There's hints that she gets stuck in the labyrinth, which I think is why it's called Labyrinth Lost. But it's if you have the most magic and you hate magic the most, I can sense a conflict here. So I'm understanding that this is some sort of hey, we're gonna go fix this problem. I don't know who her love interest would be because she is the only character mentioned in the synopsis. But again, people say it's gay, and so I'm going to believe them even if it's wrong. The next book I have to recommend is The Fire Logic. This is a high fantasy book. Again, the world is falling, everything is breaking apart. Essentially the elder witch who had ruled this land, she's dying, she has no heirs, the royal family is scattered, everything is falling apart. And so this group of individuals come together. Not all of them entirely human. There's hints that one of them is a half-orc or something. So when I say high fantasy, I mean World of Warcraft high fantasy. So that's amazing. And again, this has a female-female romance in it. I don't know between which two characters, but again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know any of the characters. The fate of the world is at the hands of three people. Emily, the scholar and resident warrior, Zalia, the sole survivor of the Slaughter tribe, and Krissa, the metalsmith and half-blood giant whose earth powers can heal. So I was wrong, it's a half-blood giant, not a half-orc, my mistake. But yeah, apparently there is a romance between two of those characters. I hope it's good. Please let it be good, because I love fantasy, and we need more actual representation in fantasy, because Tolkien didn't do it right. The next book I have to talk about is Passing Strange. This is sort of like, I believe it's urban fantasy. It's like set in 1940 San Francisco with a hint of magic. I believe it specifically takes place in Chinatown, which if you've been there, boy, that is a good place for urban fantasy, especially during the 1940s. This book follows the story of, I believe, 4 women as they try to live their lives in San Francisco during this, like, the 1940s, because you know how that era was. And yes, I have been very much confirmed that this is a complete gay story. Like, there is just romance between these characters, and apparently it's just amazing and adorable. Again, this was one of the books that really brought my attention to the lack of female romances, especially in more modern novels. I've been meaning to pick up this book for so long, I just haven't been able to find it yet. So as soon as I get my hands on this book, you know I am reading it. Now, I don't normally read contemporaries. I don't like stuff that's just like our world and people living in our world. It's not for me, okay? This book might make the exception, though. The Summer of Jordi Perez and the Hunt for the Best Burger in Los Angeles. This, yes, again, I have confirmed that this character is in fact gay and not bi. Don't worry about that. This is in fact a lesbian representation book. It takes place in Los Angeles, and over the summer, as Jordi Perez hunts for the best burger in town, which I have yet to find. So, you tell me, book, where should I go eat when I return home? Let me just read you part of the synopsis, because it's kind of long. 17, fashion-obsessed and gay Abby Ives has always been content playing the sidekick in other people's lives. While her friends and sister plug headfirst in the world of dating and romance, Abby has been staying focused on her plus-size style, blog, and her dreams of taking the fashion industry by storm. And when she lands a prize internship at her favorite local boutique, she's thrilled to take her first steps into her dream career. She doesn't expect to fall in love with her fellow intern, Jordi Perez. Abby knows it's a big no-no to fall in love with a colleague, but she also knows that Jordi documents her whole life in photography, while Abby would prefer to stay behind the scenes. And the synopsis goes on, introduces the romance between them, and then there's a whole big thing of photography and the fashion, and it's just it looks cute, actually. It's young adult, LGBT, contemporary, so, yeah. And it's set in LA, and I do know this author lives in LA, so I'm gonna say that all the locations are probably fairly accurate. So if you're ever gonna visit LA, pick up this book, and you will essentially have a map of the city. That's what the reviews are telling me. The next book I have is The Abyss That Surrounds Us. Essentially, this book follows this girl who, she's a sea monster hunter, and she hates pirates, and unfortunately for her next mission, she has to go live among them. I don't know, why is the sun going away? Our main character is just living her life doing family business of hunting sea monsters when the pirate queen herself swoops down, picks up our main character, and swoops off to an epic adventure. Which, that sounds like a recipe for romance, and the pirate queen, which I hope is going to be amazing. I have some struggle with pirates because a lot of pirate stories, they try to make it all Jack Sparrow. Pirates of the Caribbean only worked because Jack Sparrow was a side character. All the movies that got less than great reviews were all when Jack Sparrow was the main character. Sorry, Captain Jack Sparrow. So, let's just go back to the first and make sure that our main character is the main character and not the pirate queen. So that way this book will be amazing. There'll be sweet love and romance, and it's on the sea, which, yeah. The last book I have to talk about, I did put off because I kind of have, this is one of the books I've read, and I specifically, didn't love it too much, but I know other people really like it, and that is Wilder Girls. This is an arc. It is coming out, when is it coming out? It's coming out in July. So wait a month and you will get this. This follows the story of this boarding school that's on this island, all females. Suddenly this disease sweeps over the island. It kills half of them, transforms the rest of the females into sort of not quite human. Some of them have gills, some of them have claws. They're not really what they were when they came to that school. Their island is locked off from the rest of the world, and so the story just follows a couple of their main characters trying to survive on this island. They don't have enough food, the tensions are rising high, and some of them really just want to kick back and have a sweet romance with some of their other girls that go to their school. Here's the thing. Here's the reason why I didn't like this. This is supposed to be a horror. I don't find this scary. It's like not even that eerie. If this comes out in an audiobook, it might do better because I think horror books translate better when there's audio to it. I personally didn't enjoy it. I know some people do, so I am going to recommend this. I do believe that one of the characters in the relationship is bi. I don't know about the other one because she doesn't get too much chance to talk about her sexual orientation. Let's just put it that way. So, I mean, if you like horror books, this could be for you. I personally didn't find it too amazing. It was fine and all. Just not quite my cup of tea. So I did want to mention it. I did want to bring it up because this is a female-female romance book that is coming out real soon, but at the same time is also, I believe it's We Set Fire or something, a picture of it right here or whatever, but I don't know too much about that book as much as I know about this book, so I wanted to talk about this book. So yeah, that has been my recommendation slash TBR slash this just has female-female romances in it, which, you know, is hard enough to find as is, so I needed to put it in a video to go back to at some point. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Like I mentioned at the top of this video, I haven't read most of these books, and if you have, please leave your opinions on them down in the comment section down below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And as always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.